and we see if we can make a determination for self-defense. And largely what we were looking at is we were looking at, okay, is this student able to remove themselves from the situation, or are they actively trying to get after the other student, especially if another adult has intervened in the situation. Today we're going to look at the tragedy that happened in Frisco, Texas. We're going to look at it through the lens of the school. What is the school's response when you have a student actually murder another student on campus? So, what I've done is I've pulled up the Frisco ISD student code of conduct. Now, this code of conduct, it outlines all of the rules. These are things that you are encouraged to do, and these are a list of things that you are discouraged from doing. And if you do those things that we discourage you from doing, then these are the potential consequences that you may face. Now, as we go through this, you're going to recognize very quickly that some lawyers have booked some billable hours in helping the board put this together. So let's go through this. Let's look at this number right here: possession of prohibited items. Let's go through this here. You see, we have a long list, but I want to point out a couple of things. Here we have a pocket knife or any other small knife. Okay, there's that. But we also have a location restricted knife. So whether you're talking about this little bitty small knife, or you're talking about a location restricted knife, which in the glossary it defines that as a knife with a blade of 5 inches. So both, just want you to see there that the bases are covered. Lawyers have put this document together so that there are no holes. There's no workaround built into this document. So pocket knife and a knife that has a blade of that's more than 5 inches. Okay. So there we have that. And then there's just other prohibited material that, us as principals, we, from time to time throughout our day, we find that students have on them, and we're just such a disruption to our day when some of these things kind of pop up. It's like, what are you doing? Why did you bring that to school? Okay, so let's keep going here. So we go through this document, and here on page 11, I want to go through some of the techniques that are used in order to manage discipline. So there is just imagine a ladder of intervention. So you don't go from 0 to 60 just like that. Schools, they try to work with students. They try to build relationships with students. They try to prevent poor decision making by catching the students when they're doing a good thing and just really shining a light on that. We want to be fair to students. We want students to stay in school. It says discipline shall be designed to improve conduct. There it is, and encourage students to be responsible members of the school community. Disciplinary action shall draw on the professional judgment of teachers and administrators on a range of discipline management techniques. So I put that out there because I want you to get a feel for where schools are now. I know a lot of people in the public, they don't like where we are now in terms of our discipline and the way we manage discipline. But that largely speaks to where schools are in terms of trying to encourage students to make more good decisions than bad decisions. So I think that's important That's important for you to know. And these are a number of the different things that they can use. Um, I'm not certain of Carmelo Anthony's behavior history, but these are a number of things that they do with students to help them make good decisions. So let's keep going here. That's a long list. Now, when and I saw in the press conference, the representative for the family is he's not happy with the school district, and I can see, based on my experience, I can see both the parents of both students going after the school district. I I don't, just because I've done the job. I I feel bad for the coaches who work so hard with these students, and when you crunch the numbers, the time they spend, the extra time they spend away from their families working with these students, like, they're not making a lot of money. And the athletic directors who put on these track meets, like, there's so much planning and organization that goes into it. But I can definitely see that districts around the country are reevaluating things in terms of supervision during track meets, and that just please just trust me, that just makes it very, very difficult for those coaches and other people who are giving of their time to work with these student athletes. It's very, very challenging. So the representative was upset with the school, but the school is bound by these policies and these procedures. The school just can't leave it alone. I know the representative said that, he didn't Carmelo didn't have to walk, him being a senior. The representative said he didn't have to walk, just don't expel him. So the school has made that decision that's what they're going to do, and we're going to walk through how they arrive at that decision here in a minute. But the school, they have their, when a student makes a poor decision, or when there is cause to conduct an investigation, and there is enough reasonable evidence to conclude that this student may have been responsible, the school, they have to make a decision. They have to make a call on what are the consequences, or what are we going to do, what other consequences beyond this building are we going to pursue for the student based on what the student did. And there is a system for removing students from the educational setting. So here we go. Here, when a student is removed from the regular classroom by a teacher and a conference is pending, the administrator may place the student in another appropriate classroom, in school suspension, out of school suspension, OSS, or DAEP. Now that part is important, and we're going to get into that, what this means, because this is important. So let's continue on. So there's a process. There's a process for removing a student from the classroom. That's important, right? Because if a student is not in the classroom, they're not learning, and schools don't want that. Okay? Now we have a process here for OSS. Students may be suspended for behavior listed in the Code of Conduct as a general conduct violation, a DAEP offense, or an expellable offense. And it goes on here, and it talks about how students in elementary school, the rules are a little bit different, because if they miss school, then it's really tough for them. Now, what I want you to see here, in deciding whether to order out of school suspension, the administrator shall take into consideration a number of things. But one of those things, first thing, self defense. Self defense. Now, being an administrator, I've done this many times. I've had when we see two students engaged in a fight, for example. This was not a fight with Carmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf, but when we see two students engaged in a fight, I've seen it where you have a student say, I had no choice. There, the school wouldn't do anything about it. The person's been bothering me. Private chat messages, yada yada yada, these kinds of things. Well, then we look at the video, and we see if we can make a determination for self defense. And largely, what we were looking at okay, is this student able to remove themselves from the situation, or are they actively trying to get after the other student, especially if another adult has intervened in the situation. But so there, I want you to see that, and we'll look at their definition of it. And you've probably heard, a lot of people have been talking about it, but it's got to be, your reaction, it has to be equal. You push me, I'm going to push you back. So it can't be, you push me, well, I'm going to throw a book at your face, or something along those lines. So you see, it has to be equal. All right, so it's important. Self-defense is taken into consideration, and I'm going to tell you why that's important later as we go along. Now, let's get into the DAEP. DAEP. Now, when it used to be that when a student was suspended, they went home, and if they were suspended for a long time, they didn't get their work. Like, teachers didn't have to send work home. So if a student was suspended, they went home, they did nothing. And when they came back, they had just really no chance, of passing. So now things have changed. If it's determined that, okay, you're gonna be suspended for some time, let's give you this alternative educational environment that you can go and you can work on things that your actual teachers have sent over. So this program is housed in a different building. It's housed in a different building, and the students who are there, they are serving some consequences. But what I've seen, what happens is you've got teachers who are working with those students on their work, but largely it's independent study. It really is. Largely, it's independent study. They may get some help from teachers who are servicing everybody, but keep in mind that work is being sent over from their actual teachers that they can work on, and then they'll be able to send it back to their teachers to have it graded, so that they don't fall so far behind. The DAEP or DAPE shall be provided in a setting other than the student's regular classroom and an elementary school. Well, we don't want to talk about elementary school students, but it's another setting, right? It's another setting other than their classroom. In deciding whether to place student in DAPE, regardless of whether the action is mandatory or discretionary, the administrative designee shall take into consideration self-defense. So there you see that again. So I just want you to keep that in mind, that is taken into account. Let's see. All right, let's go here. So I'm trying to say, I want to do it. I want to do this first. let's go here first. So the way this works is something happens. Something happens on campus, and it's up to the principal who is assigned to that student. Usually it's grade level. Usually it's grade level. If him being a senior, there was probably a principal who is designated to work with the senior class. Now that principal, once it's decided that, okay, we have a student that committed an offense, there are things that have to happen very quickly. For example, in my state, in Missouri, we can suspend students up to 9 days. We can do that. We're allowed to do that. But if we suspend a student for 10 days, there's immediately a hearing to determine, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to cut this off at 10? Or you're out of school for 10 days, or are we adding more days to this? And that is that's decided, additional days, that's decided at this hearing. So there's a process. And so at this hearing, the student is allowed to have representation by the student's parent or another adult who can provide guidance to the student and who is not an employee of the district, an opportunity to testify and to present evidence and witnesses in the student's defense. And this is interesting right here, an opportunity to question the witness called by the district at the hearing. So that's the way it goes. So that principal puts together some paperwork, a packet that has a lot of evidence. And typically on the front page of that packet, there's the charge. You have the name of the student, date of the offense, and the charge. This is what we're charging this student with. And then in the packet, there's an explanation, just looking at facts, like based off the facts, this is what we believe happened on this day. Now, keep in mind, a lot of the witnesses who were there, yes, they talked to the police officers, but the district also has access to those people as well, including the SRO. The SRO works in partnership with the school and the district. So keep in mind, this packet must have been, it was a lot of documents that this principal had to work to put together. And I imagine this principal worked with other members of the administrative team to put this packet together. Now, I think, based off of this, no, I don't want to say I think, just based off of this, I believe what has happened is Carmelo has the opportunity to work in the DAEP setting, but I imagine it probably decided just for his safety, because things have just blown up with this story, and there's just a lot of it's just really messy as he's waiting for his day in court. So I wonder if they even attended that meeting. Now, what happens at the hearing? The hearing is facilitated by district level people who are not in the building, but people who work at the district level, and probably in conjunction with members of the board as well, because they have to ultimately approve it if we're talking about expulsion. Now let's get into expulsion, because that's ultimately what the district has decided to do because of this. So these are things that may result in expulsion. Right here, this list: engaging in conduct that contains the elements of one of the following offenses against another student: assault in various forms and murder. There you have it. So that's, again, the district, they just can't. And I know that this is what the representative wanted. They wanted the district to just hold off, don't put it out, that don't expel him, and just put it out there, because I imagine they're thinking it may mess up his chances in court. Well, the district can't do that. The district can't do that, because if the district decided, okay, we don't want to pile on, there's already there's already a judicial proceeding being taken place. So what happens if Carmelo Anthony and his family decide, well, I'm not suspended, I'm just going to go to school? Could you imagine the disruption of learning that would take place, and the message that it would send, other students and the rest of the community? So, the district had a job to do, and I'll tell you, it was very, very swift. Very, not only was it swift, not only was the investigation of the police department, seemed pretty swift to me. But I know for schools, their investigation, it has to be swift, because it says here, I think, the families have to be notified of the hearing within the first 3 days of being suspended. So it's gotta happen quickly. So the principal who's in charge of putting together this packet of information and evidence, like their day was probably just all the things that they had to do on their calendar. They just had to put that to the side, erase all of that, so that they could work on this packet of information. And it had to be tight, it had to be sharp, because again, you can imagine that ultimately, I think that the district is going to be, this family, the Anthony family, I think they're going to go after the district. They're going to go after the district. And so let me get into just a little bit of, and this is because I wasn't there, I don't know. But this is me just being guided by experience. I think, again, because the district has to move quickly, but they have to do due diligence with their investigation. That makes a huge difference. They have to move quickly because they have to let the parents know, hey, we've got a hearing to discuss this on such and such date. But at that hearing, they've got to have that packet's got to be tight. It's got to be ready to go, because at that hearing, they're going to go through that packet of information and explain, this is what we have. This is why we believe expulsion is in order for this student. Now, what I'm thinking, and I'll take you here. They have a glossary of terms. Again, there's lawyers have been through this, lot of billable hours. We're looking at self-defense. That's what okay, there we go. Self-defense is the use of force against another to the degree a person reasonably believes is immediately necessary to protect him or herself. And again, I think, with the lawyers, I think it's just because I've done this. It's equal. Okay, one student pushes another. Well, I'm not push you back. Okay, now we're equal here, as opposed to a student reaching for a foreign object and hitting someone over the head. Like, that's like, whoa, we were here. Okay, the student pushed you. Now you've taken a desk and thrown it at the student. Like, whoa, okay, let's and then the other thing we're looking at is there a way of escape from the situation, and did the student take that way? Now that's different. It's no, it's not different. It's difficult for students. It's really difficult for students because, students, especially males, like, I don't want to look like a punk. You're not going to punk me. And I don't know, like, it'll be really interesting to hear the verbiage. Like, I I wonder, like, I don't know. I don't know what the verbiage that Austin Metcalf used was. Was it like, "Sir, please kindly leave our tent," or was it, "Hey man, you gotta get out of here. Get this guy out of here. This guy's got to leave." I don't know. I don't know. But what I can tell you is, it just based off the evidence, it sounded like, Carmelo Anthony didn't take it as being politely asked to move, and so you have uh, a verbal altercation, which is not abnormal. It's not abnormal between high school students. These things happen, and I would say that this kind of a situation happens a lot. And let's say, for example, situation kicked off like this: student was sitting under another school's tent, and they got into a verbal altercation, but that was the most of it. Okay, so me as a principal, there's a verbal altercation at this school activity. So I would talk to, I would say, I would say to Austin, it's like, and now again, I don't know the rules. I don't know if there's rules that prevent students from sitting under tents of schools that don't, that they don't go to. But at these track meets, there are students roaming all over the place. And you have students visiting with other students from other schools who they're friends with. Like, it's just so difficult to police that. And it's going to be extremely difficult now for coaches, because I know administration is going to want tighter supervision, and it's just going to be tough. But anyways, I think, I just look at this situation and I'd say, is Carmelo, is he harming anything? I mean, you see, it's raining, or it's about to rain. Like, come on, like, come on, like that would be that's my, as a principal who's done the job. But when I hear that we've had this tragedy because the student was sitting in a under a tent of a school that he did not attend, like, that's just it's just senseless. It's senseless. But again, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. There are many questions that we all want answers to, but we're just going to have to wait. We're just going to have to wait. And I know that with the internet and everything, that's really hard to do. But in terms of the school, yeah, I think both families are going to be going after. I wouldn't be surprised if both families went after the school. Now, the representative talked about, why didn't you cancel it? I mean, the family representative for Carmelo Anthony just questioned why wasn't it canceled. There are procedures for that. If there's lightning in the area, then yeah, they will delay the track meet. There are rules for that in place, so the district can point to that. But what I'm really curious to know is, I want to know why Carmelo brought the knife. And then in the arrest report, it says that there were two adults who witnessed the event. I'm curious to know just how much of it they witnessed, and I'm curious to know if Yeah, I'm just curious to know, because like I wonder. This is me wondering, because I don't know. I wonder if one of them had intervened and said, "Hey guys, knock it off." I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering because, like, given the situation, like it's raining or it's about to rain, it's not looking good. You got. I think it's natural to to find a place to take some shelter. I think that's natural. And so I'm seeing a number of students just bunched up underneath this tent. Yeah, I'd like to know also. Oh shoot, I just lost my train of thought. I'd like to know. Oh, I'd like to know if the students knew each other. That's the other thing. I'd like to know if the students knew each other, if there was some previous beef over group chat or something like that. Social media, that happens a lot. So that will be interesting. And it sounds like the family of Carmelo Anthony, some they have some questionable things from the social media of Austin Metcalf, and that's so again, you just have to wait for the trial to see all of that come out. But I think ultimately, what the district decided pretty quickly, I might add. But just keep in mind, there were a ton of witnesses. There were a ton of witnesses that the district had access to, which means they could do their investigation, talk to them, and when you have that many, it's a huge plus when you have that many individual witnesses. Plus, I'm sure you had camera footage, security camera footage. Plus, I'm sure I do believe that there was a student who was recording this on their phone, and it said in the arrest report that there were some phones that were confiscated. So I they're pretty certain that this the school at the very least is certain that this is not a self-defense case here. Now, I think that, and looking at this, I think, remember what I said about, is there a way for you to remove yourself from this situation, as hard as it may be? And when you look at the setup there, I think the district decided that the answer to that question is yes. Yes, there was an opportunity for Carmelo Anthony to remove himself from that situation, because you have these tents that are lined up in the bleachers. I don't like that setup either. I don't like the idea of the canopies being set up in the bleachers. I like them on flat ground. But anyways, that's whatever. But anyways, there was a lot of space. There was a decent amount of space between these canopies that were set up in the bleachers, and I think that the school decided that, and it looks like there's a lot of space, there are a lot of exits for Carmelo to use, as opposed to, say, touch me again and see what happens. Now, again, I wasn't there, but there are people who have a lot more information than we do, and so me just going off of my prior experience and how quickly the police came back with this is murder one, and you have the fact that this took place at a school with so many witnesses, cameras. I think that self defense, that's going to be, being that the school decided it wasn't self-defense, that makes things a little bit more challenging for Carmelo in the court of law. So we'll leave it at that. I do thank you so much for taking the time to watch. We'll continue to follow this story as things come out, but I imagine that there will be very few facts, because that's what we want to focus on. I imagine that there will be very few facts come out until the trial. So again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.